Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Women in Sales webinar today titled Parenthood in Sales. We are super excited to have all of you. Before anyone asks, yes, this session is being recorded. Yes, it will be available after this. So keep an eye out for that. We will share it in the Slack channel. But all of you are here today to be part of our Parenthood in Sales webinar. And we're super excited. We have this awesome crew here today, all people that I know personally and all folks that are going to speak really well to what the experience of being a working parent is. But before we dive in fully, I wanted to introduce Candace. She's going to do a more formal introduction in a second, but I wanted her to talk a little bit about what our typical Parenthood and Sales series is, because she is actually our leader for this.
Yes, awesome. Thank you, Alexine. Yes, so our Parenthood in Sales is just like such a cool community that we've started within Women in Sales community. And we have a Slack channel. And what we do is we get together quarterly and just have like off the grid conversations where, with exception to this one, normally it isn't recorded. And we're able to just have like these raw, intimate conversations with everyone. Everyone all over has joined in. So we're just here supporting any parent, no matter what stage parenthood you are, or if you're early parent looking to become a parent. So just a fun community to kind of just have opportunity just to share more. And on the Slack channel, we try to engage as much as we can. So throughout the week, sometimes we'll drop what we're doing with our kids, and just kind of share some struggles that maybe we're having while we're transitioning. So I'm just excited to have this panel today, where we can kind of dig into a little bit more and then get some dads on here as well.
Yes. And I think we're getting feedback, so we might do some other mics in between here. But as we go through this, yes, I think it's important to call out, of course, this is an event hosted by Women in Sales, but you'll see we have some men as part of this. Part of the reason our community exists is that not only do we want to elevate women within the field of sales, we want to ensure that men and others are taking part in the work that we're doing and helping advocate. So actually, Shelton and Jeff were two of our earliest Women in Sales members, which is why I thought of them first. And they both happen to be dads, so that worked out really well. So before we dive in here, just wanted to really quickly mention and thank the companies that are investing directly into Women in Sales to offer thousands of memberships free to all of our Women in Sales members. Those companies are AirMeet, Apollo, Aligned, Aspireship, Chili Piper, ComSoar, Demand-Based, Motive, QuotaPath, Rework, Vidyard, Unifor, and WorkLife. So we got a ton of great companies. We love working with them, and we just thank them for continuing to invest in this community and making sure that this is an accessible space to anyone that's in the field of sales, regardless of their career level. So we are going to officially kick off, and I'm going to have each of our panelists introduce themselves. So let's start. I'm going to go in the order that I see you on the screen. So Shelton, can you start and tell everyone who you are?
All right. Hello, everyone. I am Shelton Banks. I am a dad and the CEO at Rework Training. Been at Rework for, I want to say, 6 years now, really focused on helping to help the tech space become more diverse, specifically for BDRs and SDRs. So 6 years of helping what I like to call untapped, overlooked communities get their foot in the door. And we provide sales enablement for the community is the best way to explain it. I'm also Candace's husband. That's what I'm a proud husband. And so excited to be here, excited to get into this topic.
Amazing. I was going to say, I figured at some point we would mention you're seeing two panelists with the same last name, not a coincidence. And I think it's going to add a really cool dimension to this conversation. So Jeff, over to you. Introduce yourself, maybe even a little nugget on when you actually joined Women in Sales, because I think that's pretty cool. What year, if you remember?
Oh, geez, what year was it? My name's Jeff Bajorek. I help salespeople and sales organizations perform better. I've been, I guess, affiliated with Women in Sales since I don't know if anybody remembers Clubhouse. It was a cold day in the winter 2020, and I get this ping from Alexine, like, "Hey, will you come join this discussion?" And I join the discussion, and I get pulled up, as a speaker, as they did back in the day. And I'm looking around, and I'm like, Shelton, you might have been there, but other than that, it was like 40 women. And I sent Alexine a text behind the scenes. I'm like, am I in the right place? Did you mean to bring me here? And that really kind of, and of course she welcomed me. She said, no, we need you here. Please bear witness to this, contribute to this. We can't do this unless we have contributions rather, and collaboration from people like you. So please be here and please contribute where you see fit. And I've been hooked ever since. I've learned a lot. It's informed my opinion on things. It has made me wiser in a lot of ways. And I'm aware of a lot of things that I've never been before because of my unique circumstances with how I work. So glad to be here. Thank you for tapping me on the shoulder to share some thoughts with you and everybody else today. And I'm looking forward to the rest of the discussion.
Amazing. Happy to have you here since the very beginning. Beth, we just had you on recently too. So Beth is like a recurring figure now within the Women in Sales community, and we love it. So Beth, tell everyone who you are, and then we'll end with you, Candace, after that.
Sounds perfect. So thanks again for having me. I'm super excited to be chatting with you guys all today. I'm from SalesLoft, so I'm actually a commercial sales director with SalesLoft, which is sales engagement platform. Super exciting things that we're doing in the SaaS space. I'm working with others. I'm hiring AEs, things like that. So if you have any really top performers that are interested, I have one more spot on my team. That being said, I am super excited to chat with you guys today because this is something super important to me. I like the word super as well. And every single time that I feel like I've been in these groups, it's been mainly talking about parenthood and how you balance that because I was lucky enough to get promoted into a management position while I was 8 months pregnant. So I'm happy to continue this conversation today. Thanks for having me.
Amazing. Happy to have you. Candace, do you want to do just a little bit more formal introduction? Then we're just going to jump right into it.
Yeah, for sure. So thank you again for everyone just hopping on today. I am senior enterprise rep at Set Sale. So I've been there for a couple years now, loving it. Newer in this tech space. So I'm just like having a great time. I do a lot of work with rework as well, obviously, hence Shelton. There's like no way out of it. So I do a lot of work with rework and the candidates kind of helping people kind of get into tech as well. But my sweet spot is working with parents, women, just kind of helping us thrive and just have our voice on our new journey. So I just been having a good time. You love super. I love awesome. So I say awesome 1,000 times. So just don't mind me. But yeah, just happy to be here today.
Love it. And I say, so it's going to be very exciting. So let's jump into it. So we're going to start just understanding each of your personal journeys, how you, your own journey into parenthood. We have a mix of folks who are with us today. They're in all different cities. We got some folks in different countries. I see someone from Brazil. So it's great to have all of you here. So we'd just love to hear, maybe starting with you, Beth, what was your journey into parenthood? And yeah, let's have you kick off.
Yeah. So, funnily enough, I think some people who are familiar with me know that I worked in professional sports in sales for a long time, and I knew that me and my husband wanted to have a family, but working with baseball schedules and everything was not really for me. And so, pivoting into SaaS sales, it was something that was important for me to find a place that had good benefits and more flexibility so that I could have a family. And so I actually started at SalesLoft after being an AE for 6 years as an SDR because I didn't really know that much about SaaS, but wanted to have a family and I knew that they had good benefits. So I went with that and I quickly moved from that position to a couple more positions to eventually lead this team. But it was while I was pregnant and I finally had that opportunity to feel like we could have a family and that I would have some balance with that. And so we have a 2-year-old. I guess he's almost 2 and a quarter, or if you're one of those months people, I don't do the months. I'm just too past that. I was 0 for a while and then 1, then 2. But it's been an amazing journey. We're still looking at considering trying for however you want to say it for another. And it's been a whole nother journey that is deeply personal, but also something that people need to really feel comfortable talking about because I think it's important and it's part of actually probably what a lot of what I talked about last time we were on one of these calls because I think it's something that you think about all the time as a parent. But my light of my life is my little 2-year-old. He's the best.
Oh, love it. And I don't know if you all have the comments open, but everybody's dropping a little overview of their littles and sharing, what they got going on their side. So I think that's amazing. And I know there's some others like me out there who don't have kids yet. And these are really important opportunities for us to understand what going down this path looks like and deciding if it's right for us. So thank you all for sharing. Let us go to Jeff next. Talk to us. I call Jeff the grill master. He may not know that, but if you ever get on a level where you're close with Jeff, you will know that he runs a grill like it's no one's business. So tell us about your journey into parenthood.
You're very kind. I like to cook, and I don't get a chance to do it as often as I would like to, but weekends typically provide that experience. And I cook outside even when it's cold outside. I cook inside too, but anyway. That's my journey into parenthood is kind of an interesting one. I've got 2 from scratch that are 14 and 12, and my stepson's 26. So I had a +1 a long time ago. Actually, my wife and I have been together a little over 20 years. We've been married a little over 16, and when we got together, Mike was 5. And I don't need to go too far into the backstory, but I've actually known my wife since we were 12. So the idea that I can look at my kids and say, oh my gosh, I was that old. It was my son's age when I met, my future partner in crime, is kind of wild. But so I had, I've been a parent longer than I've been in sales. And so that was an interesting way to start. And there are all kinds of dynamics with co-parenting and co-parenting with people that you don't necessarily see eye to eye with. And let's put that as politely as possible. And then transitioning that and taking that experience and moving forward to a point where, we've got full custody of these 2 young people and relying on some of that experience to inform us going forward and everything else. So I've got perhaps a wider range of parenting experience than a lot of people do. And if that's ever appropriate, whether on this call or anywhere else, I'm happy to discuss that. But I've been a parent for a long time.
Love it. And I love you and your wife's story too. It's so cool to just hear about that. I know we've talked about that before. So very cool. Let's see, which of the banks are we going to? We're going to go to Shelton, and then and then Candace, we'll have you go after Shelton. But talk to us about your journey. I'm sure there's some parity across both of your journeys, but let's talk about it a little. I'd love to hear from both of you.
Yeah, I'm following Jeff's footsteps. So me and Candace have been married for 6 years now, and she gave me my first child at 11 years old. She gave me an 11-year-old when we got married. So we're in a blended family as well, and so that has been an experience 100%. And so like I haven't felt all of Jeff's pain, but I'm feeling probably some of the things that he's experienced through co-parenting and everything that looks like. And then we had one from scratch as well that is now 4 years old. And according to the comments, yes, my 4-year-old is probably going on 40 as well. She could have been on this podcast and would have did a better job than me. But it's been a learning experience. It's been a growing experience. I kind of feel like on many different fronts. It's taught me a lot about myself, a lot about managing teams and managing people. It's made me a lot more empathetic as someone having no kids and then getting an 11-year-old who's now 17, which is just awesome to see the growth and build a relationship there while balancing, being a husband and CEO. I was an AE AE at Sprout Social when me and Candace got married. And it's crazy because I had just started. So I came off a ramp. I got hired, went through training, got married, was gone on a honeymoon for majority of the ramp period and came back and was just like, and so awesome to have a partner that supported me through it and understood leave me alone so I could keep a job for the next. It's been awesome journey.
Now everybody knows why I wanted both of you on the panel. I just love your energy. So, anyways, Candace, what about you? Let's hear your side.
Funny. Oh my goodness, this is funny. So single mom. I was single mom for, I don't know, maybe 9 years. So now our oldest is 17, like Shelton said. And then we have a 4-year-old. The cool part about my 4-year-old is when she was born, I had the privilege of staying home with her for the first 2 years and just experiencing how it felt to be a mom at home. Decided it wasn't for me and I need to go back to work because I couldn't talk to a 2-year-old all day. So then coming into tech, it was an interesting transition for me because it was a completely new career coming from the medical field. And then I have this 2-year-old who's at home with me all day and just trying to balance that on top of we homeschooled our Otis. So we've had a busy ride. We got a teenager and a toddler. Thankfully, our Otis just graduated high school this year. She graduated a year early and she's taken a year off before she goes to college to save our pockets a little bit. But yeah, we're just having a lot of fun managing both, but I will not act like this is easy. Like a teenager and toddler are definitely challenging, as well as both of us being in tech, trying to do events and just everything. So yeah, I'm listening for Jeff's advice on some of this because I know he's got a lot of tips here.
Amazing.
Never a dull moment, for sure. Never a dull moment. Yeah.
Yes, I am also diligently taking notes as I make my game plan. So I will be here learning too. So I think one of the biggest questions that comes up both for prospective parents and for, existing parents is benefits. There is a lot of talk on social about what benefits matter, what's most important, and there are a lot of varying opinions. So would love to hear from each of you on the benefits topic. What workplace benefits are most important and critical to parents, and just talk a little bit about why that is. So Jeff, let's kick to you first.
If you want to talk about benefits, don't own your own business. That is tip number one, because I played both roles. I think, but when I had my kids, I worked for an employer with great benefits. The ones that I used most often were definitely the health insurance benefits, and that I think is important when you have young people, when you are thinking about having young people, when you are planning to have young people. It is you don't know what. There's so much variability and so many things can happen, and you also have this. There is this innate, just genetic code in you that makes you want to take care of every little possible need that they have. And what you are going to want to do is have some sort of benefits package where those little things that come out of nowhere are taken care of. And even with like good insurance this day, I don't know what good insurance is anymore, because even the best insurance plans still require you to come out of pocket a lot. So, from a benefit standpoint, you want to find a company with a generous package. And I would take a look, if you are in a position where you can compare, I would take a look at the different packages that are offered, and not just in terms of a line item of what they're offering, but what are they thinking might be valuable to you. So really kind of be a great salesperson, right? And think about the motives that they're coming at you with, because that'll help you to think about maybe some of the things that you might need or you might not, or I really like this company, but they don't offer this other thing. Can I get supplemental insurance or a supplemental benefit? I mean, but first and foremost, it's health. Secondarily, dental. Those are the big ones. Those are the ones that we used. There were some other benefits. Well, I didn't use them at the time because my wife was fortunate enough to be able to stay home. But flexible spending accounts for daycare and childcare and things like that. A healthcare savings account, if your plan does allow that, because those things do come up. And then, I mean, obviously a retirement plan, because if you can use their nudge to stock away a little bit more than you think you can, it helps you later on when you realize that nest egg you were holding on to for some reason comes up and you have to spend it on college or anything else, a senior trip or whatever. So I don't want to run the entire gamut. I'm sure there's some out that my other panelists or co-panelists here can help with, but the ones that I used the most were definitely health and dental.
Yeah. What about from others on the panel? What are some of the benefits that have been really critical to you? What are some of the ones that you think about most? I mean, anybody can kind of take this one.
Yeah, I was going to say like the FSA came like clutch because when we started to actually put Sage in daycare, that was just like a lifesaver. So doing something like that where, you know, your company can help with it, or at least get it pre-taxed, because we saved a ton. And it even worked with like nanny services when like daycare wasn't a fit, and we were like, we would like do better if we had like a nanny come in and out and help us out a little bit. It was, you know, it came in key, and it was super easy to just get, you know, reimbursed for everything. So that was a huge one. And then which came up recently, I wouldn't even thought eyeglasses. Like our company has like an awesome package where we get like this cool discount on these eyeglasses per family member a year. And my teenager now needs glasses since she started driving. And you know, you can even use it for like sunglasses. I use it for like the blue light glasses for the computer. And I would never thought of that as like a really good benefit, but like benefits like that are just like cool perks to have.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think immediately, as much as we say benefits, I also think of like perks. And part of the joy of planning ahead when you're, you know, really career searching, you're looking for places that are thinking about you not just now, but in the future. And I worked at SalesLoft for 2.5 years before I got pregnant. But they were like, hey, we have this great maternity leave program. We have, you get a diaper service, you get a cleaning service, you get a meal kit delivered for the first 12 weeks, whatever it was, which I thought was incredible and generous. And it's funny because you can find companies that do just as much, if not more. But then on the secondary side, they actually had money set aside for those fertility benefits. So, you know, there's companies like Carrot, that's the one SalesOff uses. I'm sure there's plenty of other ones. But to understand that, like, hey, it at the end of the day, if I need it, it's there. It goes quickly if you are if you are trying. That money can go pretty quickly, but really depending on what you're doing. And some companies have, you know, an unlimited amount for IVF and things like that, or for even at SalesLoft for the carrot benefit, if you don't need it for fertility reasons, you can use it for like a doula during your experiences and things like that. And so I think kind of thinking through the comfort levels of how difficult it is when you first have a child, especially if they have any issues. And I mean, my son was only 3 weeks premature, so that's a very not early time, but early enough that he had so many issues with bilirubin and very common things that, like, just knowing that I had diapers getting delivered versus showing, you know, having to go to the store for them and things like that were very, very helpful. And I highly recommend looking at some of those things. I think there's a website that I saw at some point, maybe even someone's shared in one of the Slack channels for this group, is Parentally, that has lists of like when you can get the benefits and what the benefits are and how much the leave is for people who are planning on starting a family but aren't, you know, in those more later stages of it yet.
Only thing I guess I would mention, so I love the FSA, so we use that on just, you know, the stuff that people are mentioning, but just like the small stuff like thermostats and just the small stuff that people don't think about, FSA is good for. I think for me the big one was like the food package. So Beth mentioned like getting meals delivered while she was on paternity leave, but like I worked at Sprout and we got meals just on a daily basis as part of like a perk, and they really came in handy, especially when Candace was just like, you know, I didn't need to feel like cooking or getting food myself, but Candace like needed food, being able to like, you know, have the ability to get food and not really have to think about it was huge for me. I think as a dad, like making sure, so, you know, maternity leave, sometimes the package is different from maternity leave as far as time off than paternity leave. Usually they give you a much shorter period of time. And so as a dad, just making sure that I get a decent amount of time to spend, especially in the first, you know, couple of months when like she needs me most, but then also kind of afterwards, you know, being able to take time off just to reset for myself once both folks get, you know, kind of dependent is important.
Yeah, it's been really encouraging to start to see more companies move towards like parental leave. Because I think when we, especially in an organization that's focused on gender equity within the world of sales, you know, when we start to kind of like rework what some of these things are, and how we're approaching and the language we're using and how these benefits are kind of divvied out equally, I think that's going to start to help us make strides in the right direction too. Because you're right, like that's something that I saw in every one of my sales teams where that, you know, a lot of the men on the team, they get 2 weeks of leave and they could space it out. So maybe they'd only take like 2 days when the baby was born, and they'd be back on like Friday of that week. And there was just such a different experience. And the way leadership would talk about those individuals was, different too. Like if a guy from the team left and came back on a Friday, it was like, what a team player, what a crusher. Like he's dedicated. Like he turned around and came right back to the team. And then it's like the woman on the team who had a baby, they just, that disappeared. Essentially, they had to come back. They had to restart their book from scratch. It was like essentially like they were starting a new job all over again. So I'm encouraged to see some of these benefits start to take form and start to take shape, which is great. But I think there's definitely a lot of room in terms of companies offering more benefits for parents.
Maybe this is me showing my age a little bit, but like, what's this thing called PTO that you speak of? Like, I'm serious. Like, I've never had a base salary, and I have never had paid time off. And it's not that I haven't taken time off. When my kids were born, I took that time off, but the expectation was not changed. I remember being on a small enough sales force, and fortunately being successful enough that the C-level executives knew who I was. And so, I remember my daughter was born. It was July. I actually missed a President's Club trip because it was planned over, the week that she was born. And so everybody was excited for me. Jeff, you can't come on this trip. This is important. You got to stay there. But I remember sending the announcement and the photo of my wife and my new daughter, and everybody, being very congratulatory and everything. But yeah, at the end of July, I still had a number. There was no paid time off. It was, hey, Jeff, take as much time as you need, ... so long as the revenue's still there at the end of the month. And I think it's important to point that out, that there are still a lot of organizations out there like that. And there are positives to that environment as well. The benefit of not having PTO means I had as much PTO as I wanted, right? So there was that. But I think particularly with culturally, things are expected of me as a father, of Shelton as a father, to where, speaking for myself, my dad would have never been held accountable to. I mean, just from a level of involvement with the day-to-day stuff around the house and everything. So generationally, things are changing. And, so I love seeing that companies are also moving in that direction. But there might be a longer way to go for a lot of these companies than even a lot of us realize. So,
yeah, absolutely. One of the questions that comes up time and time again is we're thinking about parenthood, and this comes from both, individuals who are considering like their next career move that do have families, and others who are considering starting families. It's the age-old work-life balance. It's how do you have it all? How do you have the career? How do you have the family? How do you balance it? Or does it exist at all? So would love to start with you, Candace, and just kind of talk through, because this is always the number one question that comes up is what is work-life balance? Does it exist? Is it this moonshot thing we're all working towards?
I know, right? It exists if you create it and you set boundaries with your team, as well, with everything else, like, with everyone outside of it. So I think for us, what works the most is we talk about our calendar a lot with each other, and try to figure out like what are like some very pressing things on your agenda this week. What days are you just not going to be present at all in the house? Where I need to like balance my workload heavier in the week, because I know back end of the week I'm on my own. And just really making sure that like you set the boundaries with your team. I think I'm always communicating with my team, like I'm taking Friday off because I got a lot going on with my girls, or I want to really surprise my teenager and take her to go see Hamilton. Like, something simple like that, but like, don't budge. Like I will block my calendar, and if my calendar is blocked, we're not scheduling over it. Customer meetings can wait. My time with my family is like the most important. And I had to learn that. I think when I first got here in the space, I was just so excited to be here, and to get a demo to me was like, oh my gosh, I need to like bend over backwards for them, do everything, and then the demo didn't show. And it's like, now I'm like missed out opportunities to spend time with my girls, or like something I could have done with my husband. So like making sure that like I set boundaries for myself and just sticking to it, and the work will come. Like, work will always be here. I can always hit my goal. Like, I know I'm good at what I do, but just like making sure that like I set my boundaries first, because everyone will just take advantage of your calendar if you don't.
So I gotta add a flavor and color to this. So this has been like a learning experience. So from my end, right, I think work. I love working, right? Like I came into this like I love. It's something about work that just brings me a level of fulfillment. And Candace was 100% like the family oriented. Like at night, she wants to sit on the couch and watch TV and eat popcorn together. And I'm like, we're not doing anything. That doesn't feel like we're working. Like we need to do something. And it's been just really awesome to see, to her point, like, you know, where she would like have calls scheduled. In my mind with the experience, I'm like, this call is gonna ghost her, and I'm gonna be upset because like this could have been time we could have spent doing something else. It's helped me to have more balance, right? Of being able to say, like, oh, I guess certain things aren't as important. I don't have to, so what Jeff said earlier is always in the back of my mind of like, if I'm taking time off, then I'm not making money. And if I'm not making money, then somebody's, on my back, or, that feeling. But creating that balance, I mean, it takes time, and really just like both people have to agree to it, right? If you got two workaholics in the family, that balance may look a little bit different than, if your partner is, demanding something a little bit different. Balance is going to look different for everybody. So there's no one size fits all to it, is my take.
I think what helped me was getting a feeling and basically putting together a system and a process for myself to where I knew what enough looked like. And that changed. Like I haven't had that in a while. It was a lot simpler when I was working for somebody else. So we talk about the last 8 years of my career is a little bit differently. But when I knew that I had a process I could follow, the inputs into that process would yield the outputs that would look like success. I knew when I could shut off. So Shelton, to your point, it's like, look, I know that I made a certain amount of calls this week. I know that I had some really productive meetings. I closed some business that's going to take effect, in the near future. It's like, okay, great. I know that I am taken care of. And that means that I can shut that part off and then just be with my kids. And that's something that I don't think, one, it's hard to find. And to a certain extent, I was pretty fortunate to be able to find what those inputs looked like. But a lot of people don't look for them. It's just everybody's trying to sell as much as they can, as fast as they can, to make as much money as they can. And if you don't have a clear understanding of what enough looks like, it's problematic. We'll just say that. So I think and that's a boundary in and of itself, going back to Candace's point, it's, you have to know what enough looks like. So, when you can shut down. And even if shutting down looks like sitting on the couch with your family eating popcorn, or sitting down by yourself in another room with a pair of headphones on just to listen to music because you can't remember the last time you listened to your favorite record. Like, those are the things that kind of slip away when everybody is asking for something from you. And your job and your family are both those things that will ask for things that need to happen yesterday, and you didn't even know about them until right now. And if you don't keep time for you as well in a lot of this stuff, it's just a losing proposition.
Yeah, I think I would agree. I would agree with all of you guys. Honestly, I think one of the big things that I found, um, and I was lucky to have it pretty much most places I've worked, is that family first has been a mentality, because your job's going to be there, your career is going to be there, and you're going to be able to figure it out, especially if you have had success. You probably know, just like Jeff says, like what it takes, what's enough. But having flexibility and like having the right kind of leader in place and the right kind of team around you has been so crucial for me in my journey, especially in this fertility and fertility part of my journey. Like, my VP is incredible, and he is so supportive, and he knows when to give me space. And there was a a day where we suffered a loss, and I had a presentation on all hands that I was supposed to be going over, and I was, in tears, called him, and I'm just like, "Hey, I can't today. This is what is going on. This is what I'm dealing with." And like, I have that good enough relationship that I can have that conversation with him, but also he's been supportive every step of the way. Like, go to your meetings. Everything's at the last minute. If anyone's going through this journey, they probably know everything's based around a cycle. And there's just so many little things. Even if you just have kids that are, teenagers, they could, be sick, and you still have to take care of them. You could have someone have an emergency surgery. All of those different pieces, if you are surrounded by the right team, they'll understand. And that's boundaries that you can set early on. I know when I hire people in the West Coast, I tell them right away, I put my son down every day, and I put him down between 6:30 and 7:30, and I'm not going to be online at that window of time. every once in a while there's a sales call that I have to work around and things like that, but those are the exception, not the rule. So it's really nice when you can set the boundaries, but you have the right infrastructure around you, whether those are your peers or your boss or a combination of all of that, to be able to put your family first, because you only get like whatever that day is, you only get that day once, and you have to live for those moments. And watching my son grow up, and even just experiencing what me and my husband are going through, working through together to try to have more another kid, it's they're things that I want to be able to focus on. And sales is something that you think about all the time. So like you have a lot that you're kind of in your head up to your eyeballs with every stress. So I think it's something to really kind of look for, or evaluate when you're, you know, happy or you're trying to make plans.
Yeah, that leadership piece is so incredibly critical. I talked about this at a past event, but the first manager that I ever had that went through the parenthood journey was a man. And so it was so interesting because I had been in sales at that point 10 years in strategic AE roles and in these individual contributor seat. And I had yet to see a single one of my managers become a parent really firsthand. And so what a fascinating experience to, our one-on-ones, he would have his baby with him, and like, sometimes the baby would be crying. We're trying to do deal reviews. And so it was just such a unique lens to kind of see that through. But it was, had I decided to go down that path and become a parent at that time, I know that's a leader who would have understood and who would have given me the space and allowed me to set those boundaries. So I think it's really incredible when you can find those leaders, when you have that trust formed. That's so incredibly critical. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you also just for speaking to some of the journey that other individuals are going through. I know a lot of people who are on fertility journeys at the moment, and it's challenging, and there are a lot of roadblocks, and it's really tough. So I appreciate that you and others in our space are starting to be really honest and open about those experiences, because what that does is it removes the taboo. It allows other folks to talk about those experiences and to kind of process those emotions. So just thank you, Beth, for just being so open. I know we had a game plan for today, but we got some good questions. So I feel like we just throw the map away and we go on our own journey here. So I'm going to bring this question onto stage just so you all can see it. And then I'm going to let you decide, kind of jump in as you feel like you want to answer this. But this is a Q&A question from one of the individuals in the audience. But basically they had asked, what are some things that you do to recharge transitioning from the workday to parent life? They're finding it hard to be their full self for their partner and a little one after a full sales day. So I'm sure many of you can relate to this, and I'm sure you've had these experiences. So just curious, if anybody wants to take this question. And this was from Claudia, by the way. I meant to mention that.
I love this question, because I think so often it is a transition, but I mean, and actually I can't wait to hear what Candace and Shelton have to say, because for me, it's understanding from my husband's point of view. He's a teacher. It's a different type of stress. And we have to kind of use that, the mentality of like, who has what to fill up their cup, or who has what left in their cup, so we can give our all every day at the end of the day. And so it's something that we actually communicate about. Like, he'll be on his way home and I'm still halfway through my day, and he'll just say, I've had a rough day, this happened, and he's a special needs teacher, so it's even a whole nother level. Or he'll be like, I'm having a great day, like, I'm going to pick up Oz early, we're going to do this and this. But either way, I'm trying to like set expectations with him, as well as give myself the opportunity to shut off. So I'll say, okay, if I have to work a little bit late and do my forecast, or if I have something else that I need to do, I might be like, hey, can you bring him up so I can see him for a minute? Because I do have the luxury of working from home. So I'll get to see him. He'll pop in, and it'll kind of recharge me a little bit more to finish that. Or I'll just make that decision to like shut off right there and actually like put away my phone, put it, leave it in the room, log off. And I do have a separate office room that we don't go into unless I have to work late, and focus. And I think there are days where you can't give 100% to both, and understanding that. And again, like Candace said, having that boundary and setting it not just for yourself, but for those around you. it's really helpful to make sure you're setting the right expectations. I know there was a swim lesson that I wanted my toddler to go to, and I let my boss know months in advance. I let my team know months in advance that every Thursday from this time to this time I was going to be gone for this month. And it was something that actually filled up my cup a lot more. Taking the time to do that, then it refilled me for. I probably ended up working late that night because I can't help myself. But I think it's definitely a challenge, but it's about the communication piece, not only at home, but at work as well.
Shelton, Candace, anything to add on this particular question as far as like recharging as you're transitioning from workday to parent? Or is there a transition? Are you just in both and immersed in everything at once?
Oh man, it's hard to predict. I mean, so we're really good about our calendars. So we at the beginning of each week, me and Candace kind of come together and talk about like this is what's so we know who's picking up the kids, who's dropping off the kids. But then we also have each other on our calendar. So like, Sage, my 4-year-old, she's like, all right, my day with dad is first Saturday of every month, and we make that consistent. The 17-year-old has the second Saturday. We have a third Saturday as a family. Candace gets the fourth Friday. And that doesn't mean that we can't do other things, but I mean, we make it really intentional of like, all right, on this day, during this time, we're going to make sure to do something together. It's kind of like one of the ways that, we are just intentional about it. But I think for me, I make sure to take advantage of the downtime that we do have. So I make sure to get up early in the morning when everybody's asleep and kind of refill my cup and take my alone time there super early in the morning when they're not awake, just because I know as soon as everybody wakes up, it's like, it's chaos and my time isn't mine anymore. But yeah, man, just being intentional is how I've approached it.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, like, just being aware of like what time, what hours of the day you work best. So for me, like I'm more functional midday and at night, which actually works. So for me, I block my calendar off after I pick my daughter up from school. Because I know like she's going to be busy, she's going to want my attention. We're going to talk about her day. My teenager wants to do things usually around that time where I'm picking her up from friends. So I leave that time kind of open. And the way that I recharge is I love music. So I'm always singing through the house, probably getting on Shelton's nerves. I'm always singing, always dancing through the house, but it just brings me so much joy. And it's like such an easy way to like unwind from like all the craziness that might have taken place that day or all the no's I might have gotten on all my cold calls. So it's a nice reset for me. And then I love to cook. So I don't get to cook as often as I used to, but trying to be intentional early in the week about what days are going to be like the days I'm going to cook some really good meals and not letting anything get in the way. So cooking is like very therapeutic for me. So like I suggest like finding something that you really enjoy and making sure that like every day as like your day is slowing up, do that right away. Like, yeah, dinner normally starts at whatever, 6, 5:30. But if you just need a moment to like get in the zone and just unwind, take that time to yourself so then you can enjoy your other family tasks a little bit more, because otherwise the family will feel it. I feel like when I had a rough day and like I don't give myself a little unwind time afterwards, I'm a little crabbier or I'm a little shorter. With my teen, especially because she's a teen. And so I just know like they don't get the best version of me. So making sure that there's a difference between me working and there's like a little gap of me unwinding, and then they get full mom mode once I'm done. So I try.
I think if you work outside the house, then there's a benefit there. Don't go into your house until you're ready. Remind yourself of what you want, those little people, or in the case of teens, bigger people that you want to see, that you can't wait to hear about their day. If you're not ready to go in that house, don't go in that house. Park in the driveway, take a walk around the block. Hopefully it's not raining like it is here in Detroit today, but like give yourself that space. Again, when you're on your best, you're in your best, mood, or you're in your best form, right? And I try to remember that my kids don't deserve that. Like if I come home cranky, it's my responsibility to not be cranky. when I get in, because and they don't do this so much anymore, but when they were little kids and they're running from across the house to come and greet me, if I can't match that energy, they deserve better, right? So I think if you do work outside the house, that's a positive. If you don't, then maybe you go just take that walk before it's dinner time or whatever. So just make sure you're mentally prepared. And here's something I've learned, and literally just, geez, was it last night? No, it's the night before. Talk to your partner about what enough looks like. Talk to your partner and make sure that you are getting make sure they're getting what they need from you. My wife and I sat down a couple nights ago, and she's like, Jeff, you are stressing, you're pushing yourself, you're going so far over what we need from you. Like, take some time for yourself. It's okay. And for me, I have my own motives, and I'm trying to be the best dad ever. I'm trying to run a business. I'm trying to help clients. I'm trying to do all these other things. And it's very easy to find yourself in a mindset of more. I can do better. I have to do better. Hold on, time out. What's actually enough? And, Laura looked at me. She's like, look, our kids are 12 and 14 and they adore you. They're not supposed to right now. And they do. Like, it's okay if you take some time for yourself, because the path you're on right now is unsustainable. Right. So, I mean, one, if you're fortunate enough, like I am, to have a partner who can just, kind of grab me by the ear and say, hey, the path you're on right now isn't going to last for much longer. So cool it. But then also to, remind me that, Jeff, you're already doing more than what we need. And we love that. But if you don't take care of yourself too, there's going to be some problems down the line. So I just, communication with people, if your kids are old enough to communicate in that way, mine are, then have those conversations. And if they're not, trust your partner to have those conversations with you, to be an arbiter of, what enough looks like, and how you can work together to make this as good as possible.
Yeah. So I'm hearing a lot of trust, communication, empathy, working together, all of these being really critical elements as we think about, the parenting and the division. So I think it's great. And really these last few years are the first years where I'm starting to hear more of these conversations. Like, I think, even when I talk to, folks in my parents' generation, like they, some of our family friends, they're like, you just kept it all in. Like, that was the thing. And you wanted to, like, it was a badge of honor, a badge of strength to keep it all in and just not take space for yourself. And so I think it's really great to hear, more folks, every generation now, talking about this more and saying, like, I do need space, and I do need to honor myself. I do need to make sure, like, I'm also good. I need to fill my own cup while I'm filling the juice cup. So I think this is all really critical, and I'm really glad to hear these conversations happening. So we have one other Q&A question. I think we'll actually need to wrap on this one. This time went so fast, and we literally had like 8 other questions. We didn't even get there. So what we're going to do with those questions is I'm going to give them to Candace. And when we have follow-up parenthood and sales sessions, if she wants to use any of those for some of our continued quarterly events, that will be great. And if you all ever think of questions that you want to talk through when you're going into those events, we'll be announcing those in the Parenthood and Motherhood channel within our Slack community. But drop your questions in. We always keep an eye on those. Start dialogue, talk amongst each other, because it's a really great, safe space. It's intentionally a Slack channel within our community that you have to proactively join, because we know that channel isn't necessarily for everyone in the community. So hopefully you get to know some other folks. And I think that topic lends itself really nicely to this final question that we're going to wrap on. So Kyrie asks rather, what does your outside community look like with other parent friends that are in high need industries, or like thinking about sales, thinking about, roles that require a lot of us, of our mental capacity, even physical capacity too. But what does your community look like? Can you each talk about this a little bit?
Sure, I'll start, I guess, or Shelton, if you're unmuting. My community, I talk pretty openly about my kids. So the people that I work with, clients that I do business with, they are either open about their relationships with their kids or not. And so it comes from that. I've got friends from high school. I got friends from college, that are obviously we're of similar age, so we're in a similar place in our life. But I think and Beth, yours is a little younger than mine are, and the Banks is here. But you find that your kids' friends kind of determine your friends as they get a little older, and that I think is really what drives my relationships outside of just my home. I don't have online communities that I keep up with specific for parents. Quite frankly, I don't have the time to keep up with a whole lot more, so I don't seek it out. I've been fortunate enough that a lot of it has kind of found me.
Yeah, so we're really, really intentional about our friends too, just because we want our kids to be around good people, just because our kids ask our friends questions sometimes, and we don't want to be in a position where one of our friends gives bad advice and then we have a whole, especially with a teenager, right? We don't like this as much, but our friends are also our teenagers' friends, kind of in this weirdish way of like our teenager thinks that everybody here is her friend too, and it's just like we can't stand it. And so we're just really intentional about like who we bring around our kids. Something that I thought about the other question as far as like decompressing. I just wanted to get this out. I'm really intentional too about like understanding what stresses me out, and I try to take a stock of knowing like, all right, I'm only gonna hopefully have to decompress one of these days out of the week because I'm gonna limit the stressors to that day versus having weeks where it's just like if you're stressed out all day every day, have to decompress every day, you probably may want to think about doing something else because it shouldn't be like that. And so just being really intentional about what stresses me out, and if I have to be stressed, it's going to be on one day, not the whole day. Is kind of how I view it. But sorry to have, yeah. Hopefully that answered the questions.
I think for me, my community, I feel like I have so many different ones that it's like, what do I need at that time and what's convenient for me? Like I have a group text with a bunch of my girlfriends from college, like they were all on my rowing team with me, and we talk about who knows what, but it could be any level of stressors and it could be parent related or there's some non-parents in there as well. But then I also have some of my neighbors that have kids around the same age. Again, I think that's a consistent thing that you'll hear, or like that are friends with Oz, their parents, those types of things. But outside of that, I also do sometimes have Facebook groups. I'm in a Peloton Moms leadership group on Facebook, and they tell me all this stuff exactly. Like I'm also in a book club group on Facebook, and sometimes that's like the only way that I have a minute, and it's like at whatever time's convenient for me, or I can ask like the really ridiculous thing because I'm like I know them but I don't know them. So I have a bunch of different types of communities, and it really is like what do I need at this time. If it's end of quarter, it might be 5 minutes on my Peloton Moms group. If it's beginning of the quarter or I'm about to go on vacation, I might just be chit chatting with my friends or meeting up with a glass of wine with someone I used to work with or one of my other local friends. So it really just is something where I have to tap into what I need. And sometimes I really need help from another mom friend with a mom related question. And sometimes it's like, I need to pretend I'm not a mom for half a second. Give my son to either my husband or like give him to my in-laws or whomever to babysit and have some free time to go to a winery. And I guess I just said wine multiple times. You can tell what I like. But it's definitely something where I feel like there's got to be a balance, and it's really figuring out what's best for you.
Yeah, I was going to say to Beth's point, like, I feel like I use my community as my friends depending on what I'm going through that day, that week. So we have a lot of friends actually who have kids. We have quite a few friends who don't have kids. So we just tap into whoever we need. Like if I need a moment to just breathe and decompress with like another friend of mine who's a wife too, and has a kid, and I'm just like, I need to dump some things on you. Like this has been a crazy week, or I just need to breathe and just have some wine. Then I do, actually, I do just that. And then we surround ourselves with people with similar life goals. I think that's been huge for us as a couple and as parents, especially of a teenager. So just making sure that like, we had friends that we had to weed out in the past before just because it felt more draining to keep up a friendship. you know? And it's like, no, we all live busy lives, and I can only have this much bandwidth to invest in a whole friendship because I got 2 kids that I'm raising, and I got a husband that I still have to keep up with, you know, and a work. So just making sure that like your friendships, your communities that you're involved in aren't draining you. Like there should be some type of interchange that you guys are getting from each other to kind of help you grow and to just kind of help you, you know, thrive in your current, you know, space that you're in, is one thing that I just suggest, because that's helped us a ton. Like we don't entertain anything that's like overly draining, especially Shelton. He's really quick to weed things out. I'm a little more empathetic, but yeah, with just being aware of like what communities bring you the most joy and that you really grow from.
Amazing. Well, I cannot believe I'm saying this, but we're up on time, which I feel like I could have stayed on here another hour, but I have another webinar in 5 minutes. So we are just cruising today. So if anybody out there is not registered, Apollo has this really big Olympus event coming up. It's in literally in like 10 minutes here, and we have an all-women panel for talking about AI. So catch that if you have the time. And make sure to, I dropped the correct link after Kyrie corrected me, so thank you. The correct Slack link, I'm gonna drop it one more time. Make sure to get in there, join the Motherhood Parenthood channel. All you have to do is just search it in Slack and add yourself to it. Introduce yourself, say hi to some of the other members, and make sure to stay tuned in that channel because that's where Candace is gonna be sharing any upcoming sessions that we have. So we will see you all at the next Parenthood and Sales session in Q1. In 2024. See you next year. And thank you, panelists. Thank you all, Beth, Jeff, Shelton, Candace. Thank you for being part of this event and for being so generous with your time for Women in Sales. We really appreciate you.
It was great.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.